Hi guys, today we're going to have a quick look at the latest enhancements in the Juju platform. I currently think this is like the best thing ever for developing multi application systems and creating data platforms. Especially in a development environment, the enhancement in container technology and the platforms around it just make life so much easier. And this is why using Juju as a orchestration platform, as an application modeling platform, is absolutely great for data developers like myself. So we'll start with a blank server. This is a server that I've rented from Hetzner. It's pretty basic. It's got 32 gigs of RAM, 8 cores, 6 terabytes of SSD storage. Um, the only things that we've changed is it's running the latest Xenial beta um, operating system release. LXD and LXC 2.0 beta 4, and the Juju trunk build with some LXD patches to make sure that it all works properly. So this is absolutely bleeding edge, but is like the coolest thing in terms of building quick and scalable data platforms for development purposes. So what we'll do, is just to prove that we're out on a blank canvas, if I do Juju status, it will tell me I don't have a model, so I need to bootstrap. So first thing we do is create my bootstrap model. So you can have a number of models running simultaneously, either on the same platform, different platforms. I might have one model which is like my production systems that runs somewhere over in Amazon. I might also have a development environment like this where I've decided to run LXD containers, and so I bootstrap a model here. But the cool thing is that I can rip all of this out, destroy it, but also stand up exactly the same systems like over in Amazon world, and I will have exactly the same setup. Of course, IP addresses and things will change, but it allows me to mimic exactly what I will see on a large scale environment. So this is running, and whilst it does, we will take a break and we will pick this up in a couple of minutes when I come back. Okay, so that was nice and quick. So as you can see from the output, the bootstrapping process is finished. And now if I do what I did before with Juju status, you can see that it returns a machine, and that machine is my bootstrap controller machine. Obviously, there's nothing else in this environment. And it has done this on my LXC installation locally. So as I can see, if I have a look at LXC, I can see I've got one running server. LXC is a container-based platform that allows developers and obviously system administrators on a large scale spin up very lightweight containers, similar to Docker. But in this case, we're launching clean, trusty images, and then from that, Juju is then installing the necessary services on top of that. So we don't have like a pre-defined Docker container. We're just launching literally clean instances and then just dumping the correct applications and the things that the charms and the platform requires into that container, which obviously adds a lot of flexibility over just static Docker style images. Anyway, so with that up and running, what we'll do on this screen is we will keep watching Juju status. So this will refresh every 2 seconds. And the reason I want to do this, what we do next will take a bit of time, but again, this shows the flexibility of what Juju provides. So, say for instance, I had a bunch of work that I was doing that revolved around Flume. I needed Hadoop and a bunch of other services. So, what you can do as a developer using Juju is create or utilize the bundles that already exist within the platform. to connect services together in a predefined manner. So Juju allows you to deploy single services. For example, I might deploy a SQL server, a MySQL instance to Ubuntu, and I might connect Apache HTTPD to the database with my web app, and create a very basic web service type structure. But what I might want to do is, if I keep on deploying this same service time and time again, is create a bundle that allows me to just say, okay, well, I want to deploy my web service type bundle with everything installed and configured and relationships already contained. And so the bundles allow you to do this. So if I do one that I found earlier, so real-time syslog. So this one's already in the Charm store. I haven't created this one. This is available to everybody. Created by the Charm team over at Canonical as a way of demonstrating how these instances work. And so this is Juju deploy real-time syslog analytics. And as we hit the go button, on the right hand side, you will see it starting to deploy these charms. So the charms are the single services that are deployed to the platform. And each one can run standalone, assuming that it has the understanding and capability to do so, or it can connect to other services. And so you can see it adding the charms on the right hand side, and on the left you can see my status, and the services at the top of the platform are expanding. And so the different services that this bundle requires are being deployed within my Juju bootstrapped platform. And then below you can see the relations and how the HDFS master, it needs to connect to the yarn master and also to the rsyslog forwarder, and in a similar way how Spark can also connect to Zeppelin, and so on and so on. And so it's very expressive. There is a GUI that's available, but because I'm running Trunk I can't show you this, but you can also do all of this within a web browser as well. It doesn't have to be command line based, and it's also a great way to be able to demonstrate to other people exactly what type of platform you're deploying, because instead of a load of textual stuff, you get to show people what you're doing in a web browser. But anyway, so this is up and running, and so what it's doing now is it's bootstrapping all these LXC nodes. So if I just make this a bit bigger, actually zoom out. There we go. So now I've zoomed out a bit, you can see that these are the units that are being deployed below. And so we've got a yarn master, a Spark node, and then HDFS and a name node, 2 Flume bits and pieces, and then 3 HDFS compute slaves. And so the great thing about Juju as well is it allows you to scale out. And so when I'm up and running, if I decide that 3 compute slaves isn't enough and I actually need more compute capacity, I can tell Juju that I want another 3 nodes, and it will go away and just spin those up. It will connect them with absolutely no input from me, and then suddenly my Hadoop cluster's just doubled its compute capacity without me doing anything. Now, of course, in this example, I'm running LXD containers on my development server, and so actually upping the compute count won't do a great deal for me. But if this was in the cloud, of course, that sort of scaling capacity is virtually unlimited. And so, as you can see, the platform is now installing the Charm software, so it's bootstrapped all my LXC nodes. And it's now installing Juju and configuring that, getting network ports back, network addresses, back, and so on and so on. And so you can see down at the bottom as well, you've got my list of machines. Now some charms may be co-located, and so they may exist, more than one charm may exist on one box, or depending on how you want to deploy it, you might choose that you have to have a HDFS master in this place and my compute slaves distributed in different areas. And so using Juju, you can constrain and make sure that you deploy these things exactly how you want to. And the great thing is, doing it this way, I can then take this exact same bundle and deploy it in Amazon onto a number of virtual machines that obviously aren't constrained by LXD, and do the same thing, or I can do it on bare metal with metal as a service, and so on and so on. The way that you deploy this is reproducible in so many different scenarios that it makes a great way for me as a developer to be able to check and test that the software I'm deploying is as it should be and runs how it should be. I can test like a PDI cluster to make sure that the networking works right and the slave detection works right and all that type of stuff before I actually go and deploy it into a fully fledged cloud application. Whilst that's working, over on the right hand side, we can also prove that we have a bunch of new LXC containers. And so again, if I scroll over this way, you can see how we've now got a bunch of new LXD containers with their IP addresses. And so the networking is all internal and virtual, so I don't need a bunch of external IPs to hit. When I set up the Xenial operating system, I also dumped OpenVPN on here. And the great thing is that I can now connect to my virtual LXD network infrastructure via OpenVPN on my remote laptop, and that allows me to just check services are running or interact with web services without having to plug in a load of elastic IPs or get extra IPs from my provider. I get this virtual network that works in exactly the same way as it would do ordinarily. And so whilst that's running, we can also prove that various bits and pieces of the services are running. Juju has a running debug log, and so you can see exactly the state of play with any of your services that are up and running. And so that will continue chuntering away for quite a while. So if I scroll that back over here, you can see at the top the compute slaves are largely up and running, and so they're now installing the Hadoop core software. They will run a bunch of hooks to configure that software, and then in about 10 minutes time, when I come back, it'll all be, fingers crossed, up and running. Now we've got to the end of the startup routine. You can see that Juju status has now returned and said that all my units are available and ready and waiting. From this information, you can then do a bunch of stuff. So, for example, I would like to be able to SSH into my Spark box. So I know that Juju SSH, and then I don't even have to name an IP address. I can do Juju SSH Spark naught is the unit name, and so I've now got access to, for example, the Spark box. From there, obviously, I can run a bunch of commands. I can get access to the Spark shell. I can do a bunch of analysis directly on the box. But of course, that's not the only way that you can get access to core services. So this day and age, obviously, there's an awful lot of web-based analysis that goes on. And so this example spun up a Zeppelin instance, and so if I do Juju expose Zeppelin, the expose command, if you have a firewall, I think LXD doesn't. It's a bit dumb in that respect because it's designed for local development. But if this was Amazon, for example, services come up protected, and so you need to be able to expose your services to end users. And so Juju expose Zeppelin would open the firewall automatically for me. I don't have to configure it in any way. I just tell it that I want it open, and then we can have a quick look inside Zeppelin. Like I said back at the start, you don't have to do anything too funky. All I need to know for Zeppelin is its IP address, and the fact I've got Open VPN installed allows me to just directly access the IP via a secure tunnel. So I'm not going to go into a big Zeppelin tutorial. We'll do that another day, I expect. But Zeppelin is like a notebook for interactive analysis of NoSQL and also some SQL data systems. And so what it allows you to do is effectively create notes, run queries against that type of stuff. And this allows data scientists to collate data and also allows non-data scientists to be able to visualize the data graphically on the screen with some context. And these notebooks are obviously dynamic and allow you to do that in a bunch of different ways. Anyway, so that's Zeppelin, and we'll just pop back to Juju just to finish off. So, as I said, LXD local with Juju is a great way for being able to do, deploy test instances, test stuff out, demonstrate it to clients without actually incurring the cost of spinning up a bunch of nodes in the cloud. You can check the flexibility of your solution and what you're trying to implement either locally on a laptop. I don't have to do it remotely. It's just my laptop doesn't have enough gas to be able to spin up a Hadoop cluster. Or you can do this stuff up in the cloud just on a single instance and then drag it all down. So to clean it up, I could either destroy the bundle or the services I've deployed. You don't have to destroy them all, of course. You could just take away a couple of the services and keep the rest of it running if I wanted to. Or I can just tell it to destroy my controller and I can just start with a completely fresh setup, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to destroy my controller, which will take down the bootstrap, and it will remove all my running services, all my LXD nodes. As you can see, it's disappeared already. And so Juju is now just pulling all that down, cleaning it up, removing traces of it from my system. And this is a great way of making sure that you keep a clean system. Before the containers were around, Juju Local would install stuff locally, but because there was no containerization, you couldn't tell what side effects your existing system were having, or of course you could start your own containers. And so, in doing it this way, it ensures that I get a nice clean platform to start up. I can check all this stuff regularly. And similarly, if I now had a client ring me up and I'm interested in doing something else, I can then do Bootstrap, LXD. You could, like I said, you can have multiple LXDs, or I can just recreate the same one. That one's finished, so I'll create another one. And so this is now spinning up. And so I've bootstrapped Juju, I've created my LXD containers, I've then run a bunch of analysis using Hadoop, I've checked out my systems, I've torn it down, and then I'm starting again with a completely fresh system. And say this time I'm interested in something else, I could deploy MediaWiki and a scalable solution. I could deploy, a manner of different things. So if I look in the Juju Charm Store, when that one is finished, I could then do again Juju deploy. And this time I'm interested in MediaWiki Scalable because I've put on my web developer hat and a client has rung up and is interested in me demonstrating some scalable blog stuff. So you can see how the flexibility is available to you as a developer. You can see how this type of stuff benefits anybody who works in cloud systems, system deployment. And like I said, it's not something that's just for developers. I'm not trying to narrow down its use cases, but especially with the LXD stuff coming in 2.0, the flexibility that provides, data guys like myself, like the community that I hang out in, that type of stuff is absolute, gold dust in terms of actually being able to start these instances on the fly and not have to think about putting much effort into how it all hangs together. So as you can see, it's bootstrapping still on the left hand side. Now it's finished. So we'll try Juju deploy MediaWiki Scalable, which I've finally, just to finish off this tutorial, as you can see, MediaWiki has started, it's up and running, and so we know that HA proxy is our front end. The public address is 10.0.3.152, and then if I go to my web browser, I can see it's sitting there in my web browser. So, as you can see, Juju allows for an awful lot of flexibility, and I hope some of this has been useful and you find the 2.0 release coming very soon as useful as I certainly do. Thank you for your time. See you again soon.